Alright, estudiantes, you're watching this video because for some reason or another you missed or need to review what we talked about the second day that we talked about possession. So the day after you took your possession notes, the things that we talked about in class, and you want to make sure that your notes are correct. So we reviewed the fact that you cannot apostrophe S in Spanish, just show possession. Instead, you have to say something like this sentence, they are Max's shoes. What you're really saying is they are the shoes of Max. You use a definite article to say the, then your noun, shoes of, and then after day, which is a preposition, you can use any of these things here. You can't use a preposition and then have yo or tu, you have to have me or ti, or you can use these other subject pronouns or objects of prepositions here, or names. And you on your own were supposed to write the sentence, it is Juan and Anna's book. So you would have had to have started with how you say it in Spanish, and if you remember you don't, you just use the conjugated form of the verb. What verb do we use to show possession? Well, if you remember your SARE notes, one of those P's stands for possession, so it is. Then you need the formula, the book of Juan and Anna. El libro de Juan y Ana. Check and see if you had that right in your notes. Also, we put a line through this ellos because shoes are inanimate objects. What's an inanimate object? It means it's not living. And when you're talking about inanimate objects, you don't usually use ellos to say they because it's clear that you're saying they are Max's shoes. What other subject could this be? You guys. But you wouldn't say you guys are Max's shoes, so that doesn't make any sense. So in these sentences with inanimate objects, we don't use the pronoun. Moving on, we reviewed the fact that adjectives describe the nouns and they must match in number and gender. And while usually you would have to say read book, you would say book read with regular adjectives. These adjectives do not go after the noun. This, you should have had a box around in your notes, is the package deal. You have your possessive adjective plus your noun. And here are your choices. So if you wanted to say my books, mis libros. I'm only one person, but mis has to match my noun, libros. Your books, tus libros. Her books, sus libros. Again, she's only one person, but sus has to match the noun, which are books. So on and so forth. And again, this part here, I usually review the fact that if we are sharing a book, it's just nuestro libro. Because even though we are more than one person, nuestro has to match the noun. Same thing if they are sharing a book. It would just be su libro, because su has to match libro. Let's see how you did with your example sentences with your possessive adjectives. Okay, so if you were saying they are my grandparents, well, your grandparents aren't inanimate objects, so yes, you would need to start with ellos because otherwise it could be you guys. Son mis abuelos. For those of you that have mis los abuelos, if you go back to that formula we put a box around, it doesn't say that we have the possessive adjective plus the definite article plus the noun. It's just adjective plus noun. So mis abuelos. Next, they are Anna's books. We're using an apostrophe S in English. In Spanish, we can't, so we have to rephrase it to say they are the books of Anna. But again, inanimate object, so we don't really want ellos. They are her books. Again, we don't really want ellos. Inanimate object. Are her books sus libros. We pick sus because if we're saying her, we need to be in this box, and sus has to match libros. So that's why it is what it is. It is their book. You can't say it as the subject of a sentence, so S, su libro. Su has to match libro. And when you're saying there's something, you have to decide between su or sus, and since it's only one book, su. Because this could also mean it is his book, her book. I shouldn't have an S on that. Let's get rid of it. It is her book. It is its book. Your book, formal, or y'all's book, or your guys' book. The only way to be completely clear is with day. like in this sentence. Es el libro de ellos. However, I had asked you, I said the green sentences would use possessive adjectives, so es su libro is the right answer, but like I said here, it is unclear, so if you really wanted to be super clear, es el libro de ellos. It is our table. Es nuestra, because mesa is feminine. All right, let's see how you did with your possessive pronouns. So as we reviewed in class, you should remember that pronouns replace nouns. You take out the noun and you put in a pronoun. And possessive pronouns have two parts. They have the definite article, el, la, los, or las, and then the form of the pronoun that you want. And remember, they have to match the noun, not the person in number and gender. Let's check your sentences. They are mine. We don't have to say ellos this time because we've already made it clear in the first sentence. Son los míos. You would want the mine box, but it has to match abuelos, so it's los míos. They are hers. Again, we don't want ellos in this sentence because books are inanimate objects. Son los suyos. We would have to pick the her box, and then we'd ask ourselves, does el suyo match books? It doesn't, so we change el to los and suyo to suyos. It is theirs. Es, then I'd have to say, which box do I want to be in to say theirs? I want to be in this one. And then ask, does el suyo match what we're describing? Well, we're replacing a book, so it does. Even though they are more than one person, el suyo has to match book. And it is ours. What box would we be in if we're saying something is ours? This one. And then we ask if el nuestro matches table or not. It doesn't. We need to go feminine, so es la nuestra. All right, let's see if you have that last bit of info in your notes correct and if you understood it. Can the article ever be left out? Can you ever leave out the el, la, los, or las? Well, the answer is yes, but only if it's after the verb ser. And if you're like, I can't remember if I need it or not, always use it. You will never be counted off wrong for using it with ser, but you will be counted off if you don't use it without ser. So you should have translated this sentence as, she isn't my aunt, she isn't mine, and I can't get rid of la in this sentence because that's a form of ser. I don't have my books. Do you have yours? And since this is a form of tener, we have to have the los. It's not a form of ser, so we have to have the los. So let's go back to our example sentences and see if there are any articles that we could leave out. Well, technically, there's ser, so you could have left out los. Here's ser, you could have left out los. This is ser, you could have left out el, and this is es, and you could have left out la. But I like to see them there in your notes. If you want to put them in parentheses to say, hey, I could take it out because it's after ser, you may do so. But don't forget, usually, as long as it's not after ser, possessive pronouns have two parts. Thank you for watching your second possessives review to make sure all your notes are correct. Good job.